Not sure how to measure your internal communications? Prove the worth of your internal communication strategy with Contact Monkey's email solution, built into Outlook and Gmail. With Contact Monkey, you will be able to track and analyze employee engagement from your inbox. Start measuring email opens, link clicks, location tracking, and various forms of employee feedback, such as Employee Net Promoter Score. To try Contact Monkey's free demo, visit www.contactmonkey.com/ICPro. I'm Sarah Jackson. Welcome to Internal Comms Pro, the podcast. This season, we're closing the gap. I've tracked down the experts that can help us as internal communicators close the gap from where we are now to where we need to be. We're connecting the dots to drive value and lead from the inside out.
So ROI gives the internal communicator the language that resonates within their organization. This is how we can speak to leadership. This is how we can innovate. This is how we can show the value of what we're doing. It is ROI. That is how you show the value of what you do.
Hello, friends. That was Tarek Kamil, my dearest friend and life partner. You might have heard me mention Tarek before. He's the CEO and founder of Cerkl, one of our sponsors here at the Internal Comms Pro Collective. He helped me and my team follow our passion to provide resources to internal communicators to collectively raise the value of this industry. And so today, we both join you as friends, as if we were all sitting on our back porch. So again, I say, hello, friends. It's a phrase that I've used here on the show, and little did I know that it was the signature phrase of the famous sportscaster Jim Nantz. Now, Jim has anchored CBS's coverage of the Masters golf tournament since 1989. I recently saw an interview where Jim talked about the history behind his signature phrase. You see, Jim's father was struggling with Alzheimer's, and Jim wanted a way to engage his dad with an upcoming broadcast. So he came up with the secret phrase of, hello, friends, so that his dad would know that Jim was directly speaking to him. Well, the phrase stuck, and Jim has used it on the beginning of every broadcast ever since. When Jim was talking about this phrase, he encouraged communicators everywhere to pick out one person when you're trying to engage an audience. Just one person, and talk as if you're speaking directly to them. So today, I'm talking directly to you. Directly to the person who might feel like I felt in my comms career. You know, I watch my friends in marketing and in the C-suite, and they make it look so easy. So easy to get more resources, get invited to strategy meetings, get a ticket in the leadership club. What is their secret? I've always wondered. It's like watching a golf pro with their swing. They just make it look so easy. So today, I'm giving you the one swing thought that my dearest friend Tarek gave me. It's a swing thought that you rarely hear, and one that I would say, go in the tough love category. Tarek gives me the hard truth about how to show value through ROI, return on investment, and how to speak in a way that resonates with the leadership club. He brings a self-awareness that, I'm not going to lie, at first is jarring, but one that you, yes, I'm talking directly to you, needs to hear. It gives a CEO perspective on internal comms. And we get personal, and this episode's going to be different. And since we're among friends, you'll get to hear some of the uncut versions of our conversation that has led to be the #1 rated session at various internal communications conferences that we've spoken together. Typically, we edit out guest ums and ahs and gross mouth sounds. So to be transparent, we start with Tarek's mulligan. Now, in informal golf, that is an extra stroke allowed after a poor shot. They also might call it a breakfast ball. You see, although Tarek is a seasoned entrepreneur, he was still struggling with the mouth sound that I was lovingly trying to point out. So grab a cold glass of iced tea as we tee up today's conversation on ROI. Well, hi, Tarek. I'm so glad that you agreed to have this conversation on the air with me on the show. It's something that we have talked about a lot offline. And why don't you tell the audience, why don't you introduce yourself with your name, company, and who you are?
Shit, I just did it.
That's okay.
Wow. I didn't realize I'd do it so much until you pointed it out, Sarah. So my name is Tarek Kamil. I'm the CEO of Cerkl, and my background is in software engineering, and I'm a huge math nerd as well.
Well, you've been involved with the internal communications world for some time. How did your journey from math nerd end up in this wonderful world of internal comms?
It started 5 years ago or so, and I love solving problems. So that's how it all began. And when I was learning about internal communication and understanding how they were talking to employees, it really felt like they were dealing with a very complicated issue, which is you've got a very diverse audience, you've got different types of workers, and you've got all these channels, and you've got this issue of wanting people to have what they need to do their job plus what they want to learn about. That's the informed and engaged part of communication. And it's really difficult to do with all these channels, all these different types of workers, all this communication. So how do you do that effectively without overwhelming someone? That was the fundamental problem.
I know, as from a CEO perspective and from all of our conversations, I just felt like we needed to put this conversation on the air because this season, our theme is close the gap. We're really trying to take internal communicators from where they are now to where they need to be. With the world of internal comms, where do you see internal comms going in the next 5 years? If you're looking at trends and what's your sort of philosophy on internal communications? Where is it headed?
Well, I think we have an interesting dilemma that we're dealing with, a couple of them. So first is COVID, right? That came out of nowhere. I think it caught a lot of people off guard. And now you're seeing companies react. How do we deal with employees that we don't see every day? There's no more water cooler. They're remote. How do you do that? How do you know what people are feeling and thinking and need without overwhelming them? So that's number one. And then number two, and I think this is more of a macro issue that we're seeing across all industries, all size businesses, is that you've got more generations in the workforce than we've ever had. And the way that companies are reacting to this is they're adding more channels. Our younger employees want a mobile app. Okay, I don't disagree with you. How are you going to now manage that additional channel without any additional resources? That's the part I think people get lost in. And not only that, it creates this issue of creating more noise for the employee. Where did I see that? Was it in Teams? Was it on the intranet? Was it in an email? Was it in mobile? It's all over the place. So we're having this issue of more generations leading to more channels, which leads to more work for the communicator. And the unintended consequence is that it's leading to more noise for the employee.
Now, I know lots of you are shaking your heads in agreement with Tarek right now, particularly on this noise issue for employees, how increased channels equal increased workload for the internal communicator. And we're going to get to all of that. We're going to get to how Tarek and his team at Cerkl solves for this. But right now, we're going to start with 3 letters that every internal communicator should know before you tackle any more problems. The 3 letters, ROI. Tell me about, just to level set for our audience, this idea of ROI. What is it? How is it defined? And why is this so important?
Sure. So I think I sit in an interesting seat, and the idea here is, how does everyone else in your business speak? How do they think about making decisions? And how can that be applied to internal communication? So, the fundamental idea behind ROI is that you are evaluating, should we do something or not? And the way that you do this, and this is done across every business, every industry, and every part of your business, they all speak the same language. They use numbers to make decisions. ROI means return on investment. So, what is the return that we should expect if we choose to do something? What is the return we're receiving by doing something? And so now we can compare things using numbers across our organization. And it is how leaders make decisions. So, one of the big things that I've always heard from internal communicators is that they come in and they'll see something, they'll go to a conference and they get excited, and they come back and they say, I feel like we should do this. And you can't talk that way. It doesn't resonate. You need data to back up what you're saying. So, ROI gives the internal communicator the language that resonates within their organization. This is how we can speak to leadership. This is how we can innovate. This is how we can show the value of what we're doing. It's one of the biggest issues I've heard. How do I show the value of what I do? And the answer is 3 letters. It is ROI. That is how you show the value of what you do.
Well, and this is why I get geeked out about conversations like this, because to bring forth a higher level of self-awareness of how we might be being perceived, and then to give us language. Again, I talk about you helping us leapfrog and accelerate our strategic positions. This feels like, if I'm going to use feels like, a set of language and tips that can help push our communicators forward. So let's get into it. Is there a standard definition of ROI that everybody uses across the board? Because when I see internal folks out there talking about ROI, sometimes I see that it's on measurement, clicks and views. What is there an actual definition that we should be using of what CEOs use?
Yes, it is the same definition, whether it's your personal life, personal finances, or within your business. At a high level, ROI is basically what's the financial return one should expect relative to the cost to get that return. Now, that sounds maybe complicated, but think about it this way. Forget about business and just think about, I want to open a checking account. And I can go and I'm shopping banks, and they say, hey, our interest rate at this bank is 2%. The interest rate for your checking account at this bank is 4%. Well, clearly you would pick the bank with 4% because the ROI is double. The return that you're going to receive by putting your money in bank B versus bank A is twice as much. That's all we're doing here. And within business, this is how people think. This is how they talk. This is how marketing speaks. This is how sales speaks, operations. Everyone speaks this way. And internal comms should be no exception.
So is there an actual formula, like a mathematical calculation that's standard that of how we should be calculating ROI?
There is. And the first time I talked about this topic, an internal communicator started with, hey, if this involves math, I'm out because I hate math. And I responded and said, it does involve math, but it's really simple and straightforward. It is subtraction and division and multiplication. That is all. So we're not talking calculus here. We're not talking advanced algebra. This is really simple. So the idea here is, what am I getting? What did it cost me to get there? What's the difference? And then divided by the cost. It's really super simple math.
And then I think you had mentioned that ROI is reported as a percentage. Is that correct?
Yes.
When we're talking about
always reported as a percentage.
Okay, are you still with me? We're off to a great start, as goes the beginning of all golf rounds. The day starts out sunny, birds are chirping. Now, if you want your ROI swing to sound like this, and not like this, you're going to have to take the advice of the great Ben Hogan, who is considered to be one of the greatest players in the history of the game. Hogan is notable for his profound influence on golf swing theory and his legendary ball striking ability. He said, "Reverse every natural instinct and do the opposite of what you are inclined to do, and you will probably come very close to having a perfect golf swing." So let's listen in as I try to reverse my natural instincts as a communicator and do the opposite, which is to put language towards the analytical and mathematical side of my brain. Okay, well, let's get into it. So is there anything else that I need to be aware of? Is ROI the one definition, or is there any other definitions I need to be aware of before I go down this road?
Yes, the only other thing you really need to understand, and it's a great question that people ask when they start to dive into ROI, what is a good ROI? How do I know what is good? Is 3% good? 30%? 1,000%? What is good? And the answer to that question really depends on your organization. So different organizations have different expectations in terms of we've got time and money and resources, and we have decisions to make. Where are we going to apply our resources? And ROI helps them make those decisions. So based on your company, you can check with finance. You should email finance or call finance and ask them, what is our hurdle rate for projects? So hurdle rate is defined by the business. Finance sets this number. And within a company that's been around for 100 years and they are, growing 2 or 3% a year, their hurdle rate might be 3%. So any project that returns more than that, great. That's a yes for us. If you're at a fast-growing technology company and you're doubling in size every year, your hurdle rate might be 200%. So it all depends. But you can get this answer just by asking finance. What is our hurdle rate?
So I'm going to push back, because if our listeners are sitting here, right, I worry that if I just randomly out of the blue email the CFO, hey, I need my hurdle rate. I don't know if I know you're the CEO, but I feel like, again, that I don't know if I have the confidence. Like, give me some more guidance on how I would word that, because I think just to say, hey, we're just going to go straight to the CFO and ask what the hurdle rate is, won't I get pushback? Don't I need help? Guide me and help me put a little bit of polish on that of how I would get that and why I would get that.
So this idea seems foreign to you, probably because that's not how you normally speak. But to finance, this is all they deal with. So for you to ask, what is our hurdle rate? They don't think anything of it. You should be asking this question. In fact, what's probably happening is they're wondering, why does no one from internal comms ask us ever, what is the hurdle rate? How are they making decisions without this number? So you probably are worried, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm using the right language. What's really happening is they're probably saying, I can't believe they've never asked us for this information.
Okay, so real quick here, I want to mention that last season on our podcast, I interviewed CFO Jay Shelton, and I asked the same question on hurdle rate and what language to use when getting these numbers. He gave me really great statements that you can email your CFO or leadership so you'll look like a pro when heading down this road. I'll put all of this, along with Tarek's suggestions and notes from this episode, in a free resource guide that you can download at internalcommspro.com/show notes. Now let's jump back in as I push Tarek for some actual examples on how to calculate and speak to ROI, and how the pros in marketing make it look so easy. Okay, all right, that's good. Okay, so let's keep going. I know I keep pushing you, but give me some actual example, like how, if you say, hey, everyone in the company is talking like this, give me an actual example of what someone in another department might say about their ROI. How does it even communicated?
So again, it goes back to it's communicated as a percentage. So let's take a look at our friends in marketing. So they're probably the closest to internal communication in terms of function. And they are communicating to an audience which is external. But when they speak, it is always in numbers. So they are speaking about what is the value we're providing to the business. So for example, what if we do a TV campaign or a digital ad campaign or a campaign on whatever, YouTube, to drive sales? They would go back and they would report their success or the outcome of that campaign, and they would say something to the effect of, this campaign drove $2 million in sales for an ROI of 300%. So basically what that means, and that is exactly what leadership is expecting them to say, and that is how they talk. So it's all in numbers. We know that that was successful because maybe our past campaigns returned a 25% ROI. Maybe our hurdle rate is 30%. So to return a 300% ROI is a huge success, and that is exactly how they speak, and that's exactly what leadership is expecting from them.
So this is interesting because are they then some of the numbers that they need might be from other parts of the business. So are they working then behind the scenes to make sure all those calculations are correct before they go to finance? How does that work? And how does this equate to what might happen in internal communication?
Yes, you need additional information from other parts of the organization almost always. So I'll give you a couple examples. If you are working on something, a campaign to drive open enrollment, you're going to need the number from HR and benefits. What is the value to the business of getting one more person enrolled? What is the financial value to the business? You cannot calculate ROI in this example without knowing that piece of information. So you would reach out to HR and you would just ask them, what is that? What did we do in 2019? Great, and here's what we did in 2020. Now you can easily calculate the value of this work that you did to drive increased open enrollment.
So I'm planning out my strategy. I'm working with my team. How do you deal with, though, if our team is already underwater with COVID? Does it feel sort of heavy now that I got to be calculating ROI on everything? Is our ROI calculated on everything?
No. So I think this is when people first really, especially communicators, when they first understand ROI and they understand how it shows their value, then they run into this issue of, well, if this takes me additional time to calculate these things, am I supposed to do this for everything that we're doing? And the answer is no. Really, my litmus test for when do you calculate ROI is when you are directly connected to dollars to the business, providing direct financial benefit. So when you think about open enrollment, which we talked about, that's great, right? That's a direct financial impact. Your campaign increased open enrollment, which provided this much additional value to the business. That's, yes, you should calculate it then.
Okay, we'll stop there on open enrollment. So how is that connected to value? What am I asking HR again?
So you would go back to HR and you would ask them, what is the financial benefit to our business every time someone enrolls in healthcare? So they have already done this work of calculating this for you, and they can give you that number. Another example might be we're thinking about, let's say, upgrading our intranet, right? We've got more remote workers, and this is something that's top of mind to us. And we want to show before we can come to the CFO and say, can we get money to do this? You need to have the data to calculate what is the return, what is the financial benefit to our business if we do this. And so to be able to do that, you need things like, well, how much time are our employees wasting? And what is the value of our employees' time? So you need those numbers. You need to talk to IT. You'd say, okay, if we do this, what cost is associated from IT? It's not just the vendor cost. It is our own internal cost. We want to calculate all of it. So if you were to go back to the CFO and you haven't calculated what's the financial benefit, what's the true cost, not just the vendor cost, all of it, you can't really show ROI. So these things are directly related to dollars driving value to the business. So let me contrast that with when you shouldn't calculate ROI. So things like open rates, click rates, how many video views, how many comments and likes about a post internally. Those things are so far removed from deriving direct value to our business. It's really more art than it is science, than to be able to show this is the value of a click, or this is the value of a comment or a like or whatever. That's too far removed. You should not be thinking ROI there. You should be thinking ROI when it's directly related to driving value to the business.
So when we were talking and presenting together at ALI, I think we equated ROIs like the red pepper flakes from the seasoning standpoint. You're not using a ton of them, but when you do, it gives the really rich flavor that makes the dish taste so good. Yeah?
I guess.
Okay. Is there any other areas or buckets that I need to be thinking about, or that give me a signal, hey, it's ROI time?
Well, I think in general, once you get a sense of this is how you show your value, and you get a sense of when and when you shouldn't be spending your time doing this, it gets people really excited and motivated to do it. The biggest issue I see in internal communication is they do not take credit for things they should be taking credit for. They just do the work and they do not take credit. It would almost be the equivalent of marketing doing work and it driving sales, and marketing not taking credit for that.
So give me some examples. What are we not taking credit for?
So we talked about open enrollment. We can talk about saving employee time. We can talk about reducing attrition. That is a huge cost to any business. So how do you take credit for making sure that people love it there? They love the culture and they get what they need to do their job. How do you take credit for reducing errors? So if you're in an environment where we get penalized for mistakes that we make, let's say it's financial services, so how can we communicate that? Safety, quality, all those things you should be taking credit for, and they have direct financial impact to your business.
Okay. And again, we're going to be providing a checklist of all the things that can signal things that internal communicators should be taking credit for.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going. So give me an actual example when we're calculating ROI.
Okay. So you, let's say the scenario is pre-COVID days. You were at a conference and you get all excited about digital newsletters because you're currently, printing them and mailing them to your employees. And so you see this, you see other companies are doing this. What you should not do is come back and say, I saw this really cool thing at this conference. I feel like we should do this. That does not work. What you should do is you should sit down and you should say, these are our current costs to do our, let's say it was once a month or once a quarter, you're printing and mailing newsletters to your 10,000 employees. Great. You need to calculate those costs. What does that really cost our business? And that won't take much time. You probably have access to this information in a spreadsheet somewhere. Great. Calculate that.
Great, calculate that? I'm thinking, oh gosh, where's that spreadsheet? I am overwhelmed when we start talking about calculations and numbers. And so, since it's just us out here on the back porch among friends, I pushed Tarek to make an Excel spreadsheet where I can put all these numbers in, push a button, and have it calculate the ROI correctly for me. Now, I'll share this calculator with you. It is among our top 5 most downloaded resources, by the way. Yes, it's an actual calculator in Excel that step by step explains what Tarek is talking about in this next section. The guide you can access for free at internalcommspro.com/show notes, and it will be important so that you won't make a duff. That's a bad shot in golf, by the way. Download that sheet as it will tee you up to hit a good drive down the ROI fairway. Give me some examples. What would be in those costs?
So maybe you're having an agency do design work once a year, printing, mailing, our staff time to put all this together. Great. We do it 4 times a year and we mail it out. What does that actually cost us over the course of 1 year?
Okay.
Great. So that's kind of where we are today. Then you would look at, what if we went digital? And what does that look like? So do we still need an agency to do design? Do we have increased staff time because we're doing once a month instead of 4 times a year? So those costs. So all of a sudden, you now have the cost of, if we go digital, this is what it would cost us. And maybe you have a vendor and tools and things you need to pay for, just all of it all together. And so what you're going to do is you're going to say, great, here's what we're paying today. And if we go digital, here's what we would be paying going forward. And you can calculate the ROI of going digital. So let's just say moving to digital would return 104% ROI. And within your organization, maybe your hurdle rate is 10%. So anyone seeing this would say, of course, we should do that. So the way you would communicate that back to leadership is not, I was at a conference, I saw this, it's super cool, I feel like we should do it. The way you would communicate it back is, if we move to digital communication of our employee newsletters, we're looking at 104% ROI annually, not to mention more timely communication to our employees. That is what resonates. That shows you did the work, you understand what drives value to the business, and you're checking 2 boxes. One is, I'm driving value to the business, and I'm checking the box of our employees are receiving more timely communication.
That is so good. I know you're a sponsor of our collective, and everyone who's listened to any of our podcasts hear the wonderful Cerkl ads, but give us in your own words, high level. And if someone wants a demo, I know they can contact, one of your sales folks, but in your words, what does the platform do? What is Cerkl?
Well, at a high level, Cerkl as a company is really thinking about, how do you modernize informing, engaging, and retaining employees? And knowing that you've got companies of different sizes, different industries, you have to meet them where they are. So that might mean we need to modernize how we send email. Great, we can help you with that. It might mean we've got multiple channels and we need to unify that experience for our employees. Great, we can help you with that. It may mean we're looking to add new channels, say mobile for deskless workers. Great, we can help you with that. So it's really thinking across the broad spectrum of both informing, engaging, and ultimately retaining talent within your organization.
Okay, we're halfway through our round. In golf, it's called making the turn. And next week, you'll get to hear my frustration build, as I can't quite hit the greens on figuring out how to actually apply ROI. And we get the real reason why some feel misunderstood by IT. Here's a sneak peek of my raw frustrations and what you're in for on the back 9. I need you to give us some tactical things to think about, because they still don't know the first step of where to start. Because you keep telling me the same thing, but I don't know how to go back to my desk with all this shit to do and how to get there from here to there. it's too big of a gap. So how do I actually get there? And yes, in addition to my frustration, that episode will have another resource guide too that you can download at internalcompspro.com/show notes. Stay with us, friends. Our journey continues next week to closing the gap on ROI.
Internal Comms Pro, the podcast, is produced by Super Awesome Media. Our theme music is Big Vision by Purple Planet Music. Have a follow-up question for today's guest? You can submit your question or ask it live during our new Backstage Live event series. To register for the show, submit a question for today's guest, or to download our free resource guide, visit www.internalcompspro.com/show notes and click on this episode. And to learn about Cerkl, visit cerkl.com/ICP. That's CERKL.com/ICP. Thank you for listening.